For a little backstory, I, 21 female, and partner Jake, 23 male, met around 3 years ago at a concert. We started dating 2 months later. A year into the relationship, Jake proposed to me, and even though his parents were set against it, we still went ahead. In-laws and I got along, but we weren't friends nor associate too much besides about my husband. December 2022, we found out we were pregnant. We were over the moon with excitement, as was both our families. Keep in mind, we only told our parents. Come to the current day, my wedding day. It started off as a great time. Everyone was enjoying themselves, and my now husband and I were sitting at the tables while the speeches were taking place. Everyone said some beautiful things. Then come to mother-in-law. She started her speech off with some really kind things, but then she went on talking about my husband's ex, Sally, 20 female, and how she wrote this speech about them, as she thought they were destined by God. And then she went on and exposed my pregnancy to all of our extended family and friends. Her words were, Jake was destined to be with Sally, and now Jake has a baby on the way and a wife God did not approve of. I look over at Jake in complete shock, and his face was bright red. Jake and mother-in-law got into a huge argument before me and my older brother Mike, 24 male, escorted my in-laws out. In-laws' extended family have now been blowing up mine and my husband's phone, saying we are in the wrong for hiding the pregnancy from everyone. Although I wasn't even 2 months yet, and for kicking the in-laws out after she had said some lovely words and blessed our marriage. My husband has cut all contact from his family, but some of my family are now saying I took it too far, and that they were just looking out for Jake, and that the rest of the family deserved to know about our pregnancy. Now that I think about it, maybe I did overreact, and I think I should have told them about the pregnancy. So am I the a-hole? Not the a-hole. The choice of who you tell and when should be yours, as a couple, alone. And the comments she made sound malicious, purely for the sake of it. Not the a-hole. First, most people don't announce a pregnancy until the end of the first trimester, as the largest volume of miscarriages happen in weeks 1 through 12. This is common, nothing being hidden, just smart. Second, she made a scene at your wedding. Your wedding. You have every right to uninvite or remove whomever you please in your special day. Ignore them. If your hubby is standing by the choice, that's all that matters. Not the a-hole. Your husband has a spine of steel, and neither of you overreacted to your mother-in-law's outrageously rude speech. Your in-laws deserve to be kicked out of your wedding and cut off for what they did. Also, this has nothing to do with you not telling them about the pregnancy. This is about your in-laws believing and announcing to your guests at your wedding that your husband should have married someone else and that God doesn't approve of your union. The family members who are essentially backing your in-laws on this can get in the bin, quite frankly. I've been married to Mira for 3 years, and we just had our son together a few weeks ago. Around this time, my in-laws, but even Mira to a point, have become very interested in my reconciling with my mom and having my sister and I be closer. We still talk, just not a lot. Background. When I was 16, I caught my mom cheating on my dad. She and the guy were in our house, in my dad's office, and nobody else was meant to be home. School finished early. Mom tried getting me to hide it from my dad. She attempted to be overly loving and told me it would destroy the family. She also attempted to do the firm parenting thing of this is not your business. Dad realized something was wrong that night and we talked. The next day, he took a day off work, and when my sister and I went to school, they had it out, and Dad kicked Mom out of the house. The whole thing rocked my sister. She wanted to know what happened and why we couldn't be a family anymore. Mom moved in with the affair partner. My sister couldn't figure out why I hated Mom. Mom insisted we come see her new house, and I refused to talk until all the anger boiled over, and I told her that I hated her, that I never wanted to see her cheating face again. She told me she was my mom, and that I couldn't stay mad at her. I told her that she was dead to me, that cheating was one thing, but to try and force me to stay silent, to try to make me keep her nasty secrets. I told her she was nasty, disgusting, and that I didn't want to look at her. I was so mad. Mom did sort of admit to multiple affairs when she tried to use the "I was always a good mom" line, and admitted to being distracted by others at times, instead of being a mom to us. My sister and I ended up with a strained relationship because I refused to have a relationship with Mom for her, and she refused to accept that what Mom did had involved me. The second she told me to lie for her, and even when she wasn't a good mom to us, being distracted by other guys. I haven't seen my mom in 12 years. My sister and I see and talk to each other, but it's like distant cousins who see each other once every few years and not siblings. Neither were at my wedding. I didn't invite Mom. My sister couldn't come because I told her she couldn't bring Mom. It bothers my in-laws, and they wanted me to reconcile so my son could have a healthy and whole family. They tried to claim that 12 years was long enough to leave the past where it is. Mira, my wife, added that she'd like our son to be around his grandmother, and to not grow up seeing his dad hate her. Or at the very least, for my sister and I to be as close as we once were. I told her we'd talk about it later, and I told her family that it was not something that I needed to talk about. They told me that they disagreed, and I said they had no right interfering in my life. They took offense to this. They said they were thinking of their daughter and grandson, and I was rude. Am I the a-hole for saying what I said to them? Not the a-hole. They shouldn't dictate how you feel to something that directly affected you and your family. You've clearly decided that what happened with your mom is a defining moment in your relationship and have acted accordingly. Her actions irreparably damaged your family, your trust, your dad's trust, and other people should have no say in the matter. Have a chat with Mira and express your boundaries. Hopefully she'll see where you're coming from. It sounds like it's time for the in-laws to learn to respect your wishes or be silent. Not the a-hole, but sounds like you have a marriage issue more than an in-laws issue. Not the a-hole. They should accept that your mother obliterated your family, and you don't have to forgive her. Rude is expecting you to play happy families, and who even knows if she has changed and a positive influence to have around? And that's perfectly okay. This is something you decide if and when she's ever allowed into your life again, and I suspect one day your sister may regret her choice when your mom betrays her too. How does your dad feel about all of this? Could you get him to chat to the in-laws? Basically, my marriage of 15 years has finally ended when I got tired of my husband's cheating, emotional aggression, and gaslighting. The last straw was when he was fired from his job as a hotel GM for taking up with a staff member 25 years his junior. He's 52, she is 26. After being fired, I filed for divorce, and he moved out and took a job in another city. We have one child, my son who just turned 14. Though I have full custody, he has always worshipped his father. Ironically, probably because his father was never around, working super long hours, and so craved his attention and approval. And he blames me for the divorce. Recently, he has directed all of his anger about the divorce at me, yelling and cursing at me, and blaming me as the cause of our broken family. He asked what his father had supposedly done for me to file for divorce. His father has told my son that he didn't want a divorce, and that mom is crazy. I told my son that I had my reasons, but he didn't need to know them. All that mattered is that we both loved him and needed to be apart because we were making each other miserable. This wasn't enough for him, so he kept pressing me. Finally, in desperation, and because I felt it was untenable to live with my son if he thought I was the one who drove his father away, I told him the divorce was his father's doing, that he had been unfaithful. My son asked for proof. I said he had to take my word for it, and he called me a liar and said that his dad was right. I was just crazy and vindictive. So I asked if he really wanted to see the evidence, and he said yes. So I showed him pictures of his father and his young staff member dancing together, a birthday card he had received from her that I had found, and other similar items. Nothing racy or but tokens of affection and pictures of them together from her social media. Since then, my son has been withdrawn and refuses to speak with me. Am I the a-hole for showing him the truth about his father? Or should I have kept it a secret, even though his perception of events was damaging my relationship with him? Not the a-hole. I'm very much against involving children in the adults' problems. But your husband forced your hand by calling you crazy and blaming you for the divorce. Not the a-hole. If his father hadn't painted you as the bad guy, it wouldn't have been necessary in the first place. I don't like the idea of involving a kid in something that he probably has a hard time understanding. But I also don't think allowing your reputation with your son to burn quietly in the background is worth protecting him from parts of life that he's going to be familiar with in a few short years anyways. I also don't think you did it to spite the father. It sounds like you were just defending your reputation. Not the a-hole. Not the a-hole. Your son is in high school. I think that's old enough for him to request and get the truth. He was living in emotional turmoil because he was getting different stories from each parent. I think honesty was the only option at this point. His dad backed you into a corner by lying. You did the right thing. This started years ago when I was 20. My brothers and I wanted to go to college, but didn't have the money to buy our books. So Dad and I co-signed for a credit card. I worked full-time and went to school part-time. Dad told me he was using my paychecks to pay off the card. I still lived at home because it was cheaper than rooms on campus, and we only lived 5 miles away. I got married at 25, asked my dad how much I still owe him for the card. He said it was paid off, so I told him to cancel it. He didn't. He had even somehow gotten my card and had both in his possession. Skip up to a few years ago. Both my parents die in a car accident, and said credit card company comes knocking on my door, demanding that I pay the balance, which if I don't, they will take everything I have. I asked for proof of use and was given a statement of purchases. My wife and I sat at the table and tried not to pick up the phone and scream at my siblings. They had used it for my older brother's honeymoon, vacations, medicine, gas, groceries, you name it. I called my older brother and asked him what the hell. He said, and I quote, "I'm still paying for the funeral, which was $15K. How does $15K compare to the $65K plus that is owed on a card that I have not used since I was 22? I can't talk to them. Our friends say that they are acting like they are the victim. Am I the a-hole for refusing to allow them into my life?" Update 1. The credit card with my name on it was used for everything. My father's card was hardly ever used because they could try to copy my handwriting, which, upon seeing their signature and mine, proves that I did not have the card because of how far off the signatures were. Also, I saw how my parents used credit cards and my aunts and uncles. I vowed to pay cash for anything I want or wait until I can afford it. Only recently did we buy a house. Update 2. My siblings are telling everyone that I am the problem and they are the victim. Also that I used the card. I moved away almost an hour. How could I possibly use it? Update 3. My spouse had to sign for the house because of my credit. Update 4. When I asked my dad about the balance, he said that it was paid off. He said that he would cancel it. I believed my dad, but I guess I should have done it. I trusted my dad. Not the a-hole. The time to get a lawyer was yesterday. If your parents left an estate, then this credit card balance needs to be subtracted from the portion that goes to your brothers. Said lawyer could also intervene with the creditors on your behalf and negotiate a settlement or payment plan. This is also a good lesson in the importance of monitoring your credit report. 10 minutes and $10 could have identified this problem years ago. Not the a-hole, clearly. You need to contact the credit card company and report fraudulent use. And yes, that will cause legal trouble for them. And no, you shouldn't feel bad about that. Not the a-hole. You made an unfortunate decision to become the joint debtor on that credit card account, but there still may be a way to get out of it. You should talk to a lawyer about how to proceed, but it's not as simple as they will take everything you have. There will be questions to answer, such as, were you not getting statements on the credit card? Did you really know what your parents were charging to the account? My husband and I have been together for a decade. Over the last 3 years, our life has been less than satisfying. Knowing my husband wasn't exactly happy, I had jokingly told him he could get a girlfriend to scratch his itch if he needed to. Over the last year, I had been more serious about it. I just wanted him to 1. Be safe, 2. Not spend money on her, and 3. I didn't want to know about it. He works overseas and is gone for months at a time. This last trip, I got a message that he had met some girl, and she was in love with him. He said, "I don't know what I'm supposed to do. She knows I'm married. She knows that you know about her. She wants to date me and have a relationship." I told her I don't even know if I'm coming back to Taiwan. She said she would come visit, unless she would get mad. Then she said, "Why don't you have a Taiwan wife and an American wife?" I told her I think that is illegal. I laughed and said just don't give her any money. He asked if she could come to the States, and I thought he was joking. I told him I was trying to be understanding, but the more he talked about it, the more uneasy I was getting. I asked why couldn't he just enjoy the fantasy and leave it at that. He said his anxiety made him want to be honest because otherwise he felt like he was cheating. But he left it there, and I thought that was the last of us talking about it. Well, he got home and wanted to talk about it some more, asking to spend more time with her when he goes overseas. And I just told him I want him to be happy. I figured that over the next couple of months that he is home, we'd get back to us and everything would be fine. The next evening, I dropped a bunch of small screws off a desk, and since my phone was dead, I grabbed his to use the flashlight. I saw he had a What's Up app message and I looked. I read messages going back a month and where he was telling her that he loved her. He was calling her his wife, and she was calling him her husband. She was saying he didn't think he needed to always spend his money on her, and she knew he wanted to take care of her. I couldn't believe the things I was reading. I know I opened the door. I drank a glass of wine and then I confronted him. He said everything he said to her was basically lip service and didn't mean anything. He admitted he cared for her, but didn't know how much. I told him I don't care about the S, but feelings are another thing. He said that he loves and wants to remain with me. I've asked him to look for another job that would keep him stateside, even maybe get a 9 to 5. I don't think I'm being unreasonable, but he does. Am I the a-hole? So wait, you told your husband to get a girlfriend? Then got upset when he got a girlfriend. This is not an affair. That's an open relationship. You're the a-hole. Your marriage is over. He's sleeping with someone else and he's told her he loves her. Keeping him in the States isn't going to solve the problem that made you tell him to get a girlfriend. Everyone sucks here. You gave your husband permission to have a girlfriend, and now you want him to quit his job because he fell in love with his girlfriend. That's the risk you take when you have an open relationship.